If you losing your husband, finally finding a little peace. You won't believe what happened the day my son brought his wife to my door and told me she was moving in to teach me how to run my own house. But what she did next, let's just say nobody saw it coming, and it changed everything. Stay with me, because you do not want to miss how this story ends! After my husband passed away, the house felt like a different world. The silence was thick, almost heavy, but I was learning to live with it. I'd spent 30 years making this place a home, scrubbing floors, paying bills, fixing leaky faucets, and keeping everything running like a well-oiled machine. I thought I'd seen it all. But let me tell you, nothing could have prepared me for what happened one sunny Sunday afternoon. I was just settling into my favorite armchair with a cup of coffee, enjoying the rare peace, when I heard the front door open. In walked my son Grant with his wife Harper trailing behind him. Now, Grant is a good man, always has been. He's got his father's stubborn streak and my sense of humor, which is a dangerous combination. Harper, on the other hand, is a force of nature. She's the kind of woman who walks into a room and immediately starts rearranging the furniture in her mind. Always put together, always in control, and always carrying a purse that looks like it could double as a suitcase. I smiled and stood up, ready to greet them. "Well, this is a nice surprise. What brings you two by?" Grant gave me a quick hug, but I could tell something was up. He had that look on his face, the one he used to get when he broke a window playing baseball as a kid. Harper, meanwhile, was all business. She barely managed a smile before glancing around the living room, her eyes scanning for dust bunnies or misplaced magazines. Before I could even offer them a cup of tea, Grant cleared his throat. "Mom, we've been talking, and we think it's time for a change around here." I raised an eyebrow. "A change? What kind of change?" He took a deep breath, like he was about to deliver some life-altering news. "Harper is going to move in for a while. She's going to help you out and, well, teach you how to take care of the house properly." I nearly dropped my coffee. Teach Emma how to take care of my house, the same house I bought, paid off, and kept spotless for 3 decades. I couldn't help it, I burst out laughing. Not a polite little chuckle, but a full-on, belly-shaking laugh that echoed through the house. Grant looked confused, and Harper looked downright offended, but I couldn't stop. "I mean, really, teach me how to take care of my own house. The nerve!" When I finally caught my breath, I looked Grant dead in the eye and said, "In my house, bought with my money and 30 years of hard work." I could see the color rising in his cheeks, but I wasn't done. "You think I need lessons on how to run a home? Honey, I could teach a master class." Harper stepped forward, her lips pressed into a thin line. "We just think you could use some help. Things have changed, you know. There are new ways to do things, new products, new routines." I held up a hand. "Sweetheart, I've been running this house since before you were born. I know every creak in the floor, every stubborn stain, and every trick to keep the place running. Unless you've invented a way to make dust disappear with a snap of your fingers, I think I'll manage." She huffed, clutching her purse a little tighter. Grant tried to jump in, but I wasn't having it. "Let me get this straight," I said, leaning back in my chair. "You want to move in here, take over my house, and teach me how to do what I've been doing for 30 years. What's next? You going to show me how to boil water?" I could see the wheels turning in her head, but she didn't have a comeback. Grant just looked at the floor, probably wishing he'd stayed home. I almost felt sorry for them, almost. Ladies, have you ever been so shocked you just had to laugh? Because if I didn't, I might have cried or thrown something. The nerve! I mean, really, what did they think I'd been doing all these years? Sitting around waiting for someone to come show me how to fold a towel. I wanted to ask if they'd like a lesson in humility, but I bit my tongue. No need to start World War III in my living room, at least, not yet. As I sat there, watching them squirm, I realized something. This was my house, my life, and I wasn't about to let anyone, no matter how well-intentioned, take that away from me. Not now, not ever. And if they thought otherwise, well, they were in for a surprise. Now, here's where things get spicy. You know, I always thought the phrase, "bless her heart," was just a polite way of saying someone's a little clueless. But Harper really put it to the test that day, after Grant's little announcement about her moving in to teach me how to take care of my own house. I thought the drama was over. I figured they'd see the look on my face, realize they'd overstep, and we'd all have a good laugh about it over some tea and maybe a slice of my famous lemon pound cake. But no, apparently, we were just getting started. She stood there in my living room, her heels clicking on the hardwood I'd refinished myself, her lips pursed so tight I thought she might swallow her own words. I could see her sizing me up, probably thinking I was just some old lady set in her ways, someone she could bulldoze with a few modern ideas and a Pinterest board. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then, out of nowhere, she did something I'll never forget. She actually lifted her purse. Yes, her purse. Like she was about to swing it at me. Now, I don't know if she thought she was starring in some kind of reality TV showdown or if she just lost her mind for a second, But there it was, her arm cocked back, her designer bag dangling like a weapon, and her eyes locked on mine. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I mean, what was she going to do? Knock some sense into me with a Coach bag? Maybe she thought there was a magic button in there that would make me suddenly forget how to run a household. For a split second, the room went dead silent. Grant's jaw dropped so far I thought he might need help picking it up off the floor. I could see the panic in his eyes, like he was watching a train wreck in slow motion and couldn't look away. I, on the other hand, just stood my ground. I didn't flinch, didn't back down, didn't even blink. Instead, I gave her the look. You know, the one, I've raised 3 kids, survived the 80s, and lived through more than you can imagine look. The look that says, honey, you have no idea who you're dealing with. She hesitated. Real quick. Her arm wavered, and for a moment, I thought she might actually go through with it. But then she caught herself. Maybe it was the way I squared my shoulders, or maybe it was the memory of all those stories Grant must have told her about my don't mess with mom moments. Whatever it was, she lowered her purse, her face flushing a deep shade of red. I didn't even have to say a word. Sometimes a mother's glare is all it takes. But let me tell you, inside I was a mix of emotions. Part of me was furious. How dare she come into my home and try to intimidate me? Another part of me was almost amused. I mean, really, who does that? And then there was a tiny part of me that felt a little sad. Was this what my son thought I needed? Was this what he thought I deserved after all these years? It stung, I won't lie. But I wasn't about to let that show. Not in front of her. Not in my own living room. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and decided to take control of the situation. Is that how you solve your problems? I asked, my voice calm but firm. Be swinging your purse at them? Because if so, you're going to need a much bigger bag. I couldn't help but let a little smirk slip through. Grant let out a nervous chuckle, but Harper just glared at me, her pride clearly wounded. She tried to recover, straightening her posture and smoothing her hair like nothing had happened. I just think you could use some help, that's all, she said, her voice a little shaky. There are new ways to do things, and I thought maybe you'd be open to learning. I raised an eyebrow. Learning? Sweetheart, I've been learning my whole life. I learned how to stretch $1 when times were tough, how to fix a leaky faucet when your father was too busy, and how to keep this house running when everyone else was falling apart. If you've got something new to teach me, I'm all ears. But don't you ever try to threaten me in my own home. The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Grant shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing he could disappear. I could see the wheels turning in Harper's head, trying to figure out her next move. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. She was young, maybe a little insecure, and probably just wanted to prove herself. But there's a right way and a wrong way to go about things, and swinging a purse at your mother-in-law definitely falls into the latter category. I decided to give her an out. Look, I said, softening my tone just a bit, I know you want to help, and I appreciate that really. But you have to understand, this house is more than just walls and floors. It's my life's work. Every scratch on the table, every dent in the wall, every faded spot on the carpet, it all tells a story, my story. And I'm not about to let anyone erase that, no matter how well-intentioned. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine for any sign of weakness. But all she found was resolve. I wasn't gonna budge. Not now, not ever. Grant finally found his voice. Maybe we should all just take a step back, he said, his tone pleading. We didn't mean to upset you, Mom. We just thought, well, maybe things could be easier for you. I nodded, letting some of the tension drain from my shoulders. I know you meant well, but easier isn't always better. Sometimes the hard way is the right way. It builds character, it builds memories. And it sure as heck builds a thicker skin. There was a long, awkward pause. Harper finally set her purse down on the coffee table, a silent truce. I could see the fight drain out of her, replaced by something that looked a lot like respect. Maybe even a little admiration. Have you ever had to remind someone who's really in charge? Because let me tell you, it's a skill worth keeping sharp. Sometimes, all it takes is a look, a reminder that you've been through more than they can imagine, and you're not about to let anyone, no matter how fancy their purse, push you around. That day, I didn't just stand my ground, I reclaimed it. And as I watched Harper finally settle into the couch, a little less sure of herself but a lot more willing to listen, I knew I'd done the right thing. After that little purse fiasco, you could cut the tension in my living room with a butter knife. Grant, bless his heart, tried to play peacemaker, but I could see he was more scared of me than of his wife. Smart boy. He kept glancing between us like a referee at a boxing match, probably wondering if he should throw in the towel or just duck and cover. I could almost hear his thoughts. Why did I think this was a good idea? I almost felt sorry for him, almost. But I wasn't about to let this circus continue in my living room. I took a deep breath, straightened my back and said, all right, both of you, let's sit down at the kitchen table. And let me tell you, that kitchen table has seen more family drama than a season of Dallas. It's where I taught my kids to do their homework, where we celebrated birthdays, and where I once caught my husband trying to sneak the last piece of pie. That table is the heart of my home, and if we were going to have a showdown, it was going to be on my turf. We all sat down, the three of us, with the afternoon sun streaming through the window and the old clock on the wall ticking away, louder than ever. I folded my hands and looked at them, really looked at them. Grant, fidgeting with his wedding ring, eyes darting everywhere but at me. Harper still clutching her purse like it was a life raft, her lips pressed together in a thin line. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the way she was bracing herself for another round. But I was done with the drama. It was time for some plain talk. This house is my sanctuary. I began, my voice steady and calm. I built it, I paid for it, and I'll be the one to decide how things are run. If you want to help, you can start by respecting that. I let the words hang in the air, heavy and unyielding. I wanted them to really hear me, to understand that this wasn't just about cleaning routines or who got to pick the curtains. This was about respect, about honoring the life I'd built, brick by brick, over 30 long, hard years. There was a long, awkward silence. You could hear the clock ticking, the refrigerator humming, even the faint chirp of a bird outside. Grant cleared his throat, but for once, he didn't try to fill the silence with nervous chatter. Harper looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing the stitching on her purse. I almost felt bad for them, sitting there like two kids called to the principal's office. Almost. But then, something amazing happened. Harper's face softened. She let out a long breath, like she'd been holding it in for hours, and finally put her purse down on the table. Gently this time, as if she was surrendering a weapon. She looked up at me, her eyes a little watery, and said, "I'm sorry. I just wanted to help, but I guess I went about it the wrong way." And now I didn't expect that. I was ready for another round, maybe even a few tears or a dramatic exit. But instead she gave me honesty. And let me tell you, sometimes a little honesty goes a long way. I could see the tension drain out of her shoulders, replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. She wasn't the enemy, just a young woman trying to find her place in a family that wasn't hers by birth. Grant looked at her, then at me, relief washing over his face. "We'd just worry about you, Mom," he said quietly. "It's been a tough year, and we thought maybe you could use some help. We didn't mean to make you feel like you weren't doing enough." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. I wasn't used to being the one who needed help. I'd spent my whole life being the strong one, the fixer, the glue that held everything together. But maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone else take the reins every now and then. Not to take over, but to walk alongside me. I reached across the table and put my hand over Harper's. "I appreciate that you want to help," I said, my voice softer now. "But you have to understand, this house is more than just a place to live. It's my history, my memories, my safe haven. I need you to respect that. And if you want to be a part of it, you have to do it with kindness, not criticism." She nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "I just wanted to feel useful. I guess I was trying too hard." I squeezed her hand. "We all try too hard sometimes. But you don't have to prove anything to me. Just be yourself. And maybe, instead of teaching me how to run my house, you could let me teach you a thing or two. Like how to get spaghetti sauce out of a white blouse, or how to make a pie crust that doesn't taste like cardboard." That got a laugh out of her, and even Grant managed a smile. The tension in the room melted away, replaced by something warmer, more genuine. We sat there for a while just talking, really talking, for the first time in ages. We shared stories, swapped recipes, and even made plans to tackle the garden together next weekend. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light across the kitchen, I realized something important. Families aren't perfect. We fight, we misunderstand, we hurt each other without meaning to. But at the end of the day, what matters is that we come back to the table, ready to listen, ready to forgive, ready to try again. So if you ever find yourself in the middle of a family showdown, remember this: honesty, respect, and a little bit of humor can go a long way. And never underestimate the power of a kitchen table to bring people back together. After that day, something shifted in our little family dynamic. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-style transformation, no swelling music or teary group hugs, but a slow, steady change like the way spring creeps in after a long winter. Grant and Harper started coming over more often, but this time, it was different. The air was lighter, the tension gone, replaced by a new sense of understanding. They didn't barge in with grand plans or unsolicited advice. Instead, they'd call first, ask if I needed anything, and, bless their hearts, actually listen to my answer. It was a small thing, but it meant the world to me. We found a rhythm, the three of us. Harper, who I'd once thought of as a walking, talking Pinterest board, turned out to have a real knack for gardening. Who knew? She'd show up in her designer sneakers, hair pulled back, ready to get her hands dirty. We'd spend hours out in the yard, pulling weeds, planting new flowers, and swapping stories. She'd tell me about her childhood in the city, how she'd always dreamed of having a little patch of green to call her own. I'd share tales of my own early days, when I could barely tell a daisy from a dandelion, and how I'd learned everything I knew from trial error and a few well-timed phone calls to my mother. It wasn't just the garden that brought us together. One afternoon, as we were cleaning up after a long day of digging and planting, she asked if I'd teach her how to make my famous meatloaf. Now, if you know me, you know I guard that recipe like it's the crown jewels. But something in her eyes, curiosity maybe, or just a genuine desire to connect, made me say yes. We spent the next few hours in the kitchen, elbows deep in breadcrumbs and ground beef, laughing as she tried and failed to keep the onions from making her cry. By the time the meatloaf was in the oven, we were both a little teary-eyed, but for different reasons. Grant, for his part, seemed relieved to see us getting along. He'd help out where he could, hauling bags of mulch, fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom, or just sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, watching us with a smile. Sometimes, I'd catch him looking at me with a mix of pride and gratitude, and I'd remember that, no matter how old our children get, they still need us. Maybe not in the same way as when they were little, but in ways that matter just as much. And yes, every now and then, we'd laugh about the purse incident. It became a running joke between us. Whenever Harper got a little too bossy, I'd raise an eyebrow and say, "Careful, or I'll have to duck." She'd roll her eyes, but there was always a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. It was our way of acknowledging the past without letting it define us. We'd moved on, together. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the scariest moments lead to the best changes. That day, when I stood my ground and refused to let anyone take over my home, I was terrified. I worried I'd push them away for good, that I'd end up alone in this big, quiet house. But instead, it opened the door to something better. A relationship built on mutual respect, not resentment. I learned that I didn't have to do everything alone, that it was okay to accept help, as long as it came with kindness and understanding. And they learned that a little respect goes a long way, especially when you're dealing with someone who spent a lifetime building a home, not just a house. It wasn't always easy. There were still days when we butted heads, when old habits crept back in and tempers flared. But we'd learned how to talk things through, how to listen without judgment, and how to laugh at ourselves when things got a little too serious. We became a team, each of us bringing something different to the table. Harper brought fresh ideas and energy, Grant brought his steady presence, and I brought a lifetime of experience and a stubborn streak a mile wide. The house felt different too. It was still my sanctuary, my safe haven, but it was also a place where new memories were being made. The kitchen was filled with the smells of shared meals, the garden bloomed with flowers we'd planted together, and the living room echoed with laughter instead of arguments. I even found myself looking forward to their visits, to the sound of their car pulling into the driveway, to the way Harper would peek her head in the door and ask, "What's on the agenda today, boss?" And you know what? I realized that life after 50 isn't about slowing down or fading into the background. It's about embracing change, standing your ground when you need to, and opening your heart to new possibilities. It's about finding joy in the little things. A perfectly baked meatloaf, a garden in full bloom, a family that's a little messy but full of love. So, ladies, let me ask you, have you ever had to stand your ground in your own home? How did you handle it? Did you find your voice? Or did you let someone else take the lead? I'd love to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments below. We all have moments when we have to remind the world, Ellas, and sometimes ourselves, that we're still here, still strong, and still in charge of our own lives. And if you enjoyed this little slice of my life, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There's plenty more where this came from. Because life after 50 is just getting interesting. Whether it's family drama, kitchen adventures, or just a good old-fashioned laugh, I'll be here, sharing it all with you. So pull up a chair, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and let's navigate this new normal together. After all, we've earned it.